How would you describe what it is you do?
That's a great question. I think I would describe myself as a very creative person, and that takes the form of lots of different forms of creation. Certainly I'm a composer, and people think, how do you just create something out of nothing? And I think really there's music everywhere. You just have to be listening for it, you have to watch for it. I love creating beauty, and my mission statement for my company is actually creating beautiful music for the world. So that's a huge part of who I am.
When you were growing up, who were your musical influences?
Probably my biggest influences were the music of the church, because I started playing the piano in the church when I was 13. And I didn't listen to lots of rock and roll records. I grew up in the 60s and the 70s, mainly the 60s and stuff, and I listened to the Beatles and things like that, and the Beach Boys occasionally, but it wasn't like I always had the radio on listening to that. It seems like my music was more like Broadway. I remember we had records at home just of orchestral music and the music that came from the theater, and so I loved listening to that kind of music as much as anything.
When did you know, when did you sense that music was what you were created to do?
I think it happened in college. I loved music. I decided to be a piano performance major. I did that for a couple of years and thought, wow, this is a lot of practice. I'm not cut out to do this. I want to stop this. But luckily for me, I was in college where there was a music publishing company in the same town, and I did kind of a unofficial internship for them and got a chance to do some editing and arranging and see the inside of the business that way, and got connected with some people. And I had a little singing group. It was a Christian singing group at the college I went to that I began arranging for. We did gigs and concerts on the weekends. And so this publishing company was also a record label, and they gave us a record deal, and I got to arrange 10 songs, an entire album. I got to orchestrate everything. We did it in LA and Dallas. I had no idea what I was doing, but I did it anyway. And it was the very first thing I got published, right out of the chute. And I thought, wow, maybe this is something that I could make a living at. And I remember the very first time I wrote, the first arrangement I wrote for voices was Angels We Have Heard on High in the style of the Swingle Singers with dabba-dabba-dabbas.
Yep.
It was all that, no other words. It was a cappella. It was pretty hard, I thought, a lot of melismas and counterpoint. And when I finished it, I thought, wow, that was really hard. I just exhausted the sum total of my creative energies. I'll never be able to write another thing.
I'm done.
Yeah, I'm done. That's it, And needless to say, the story didn't end there.
Is there a song that you consider sort of like a signature song for you?
One of my favorite old pop songs is The Nearness of You. I just love that romantic ballad. I think it's just gorgeous. People often ask me if I have a favorite song that I've written, and I don't really have a favorite one. It's kind of like hard to pick from your children.
Yes.
A lot of times I'll write something and I maybe not that excited about listening to it again because I put a lot of emotion into it and it's there. But sometimes I'll write something and I can listen to it time and time again, and I still hear it new and fresh, and that's when I know that there's something really significant about it.
In Creator Magazine, Bob Burrows, who's the editor of Creator Magazine, he wrote in that, he said, "Mark to me is as close to a modern-day Mozart as any composer I know."
I paid him well to say that.
You did?
No.
How much did it cost you?
Bob is a longtime friend. I guess I just have to really not believe my own press releases, because that just would be intolerable for me to be, people to be around me that way. I'm confident, I love myself, and I believe what I'm doing is a gift to people, but I also know that I'm
You're not a modern-day Mozart?
No, I'm not a modern-day Mozart. That's Bob's.
I couldn't resist. I thought I would have to ask.
Those Bob's words. Yeah.
Those are Bob's words. Musicians, as a rule, like to live in New York, and they like to live in LA, and they like to live in Nashville. Okay, Missouri.
I know. Kansas City, Missouri. I moved there to take a job from college as an editor for a publishing company. The company went out of business after 3 years. And so I thought, I'm just going to freelance for a year until I get another publishing job. And I never got another job. And so this is my 30th year of being self-employed. I thought that was so risky at the time, 1980. I thought, wow, I might lose my, somehow I won't be able to make it. And actually it's become the most secure way to live for me. And I stayed in the Midwest because I kind of grew up there. I did a lot of recording in Nashville. I've recorded some in LA, not so much in New York. And I found that those cities, especially Nashville, it's kind of a fishbowl experience where everybody knows what everybody else is doing. It's really competitive and cutthroat. And I thought, I can either be incredibly successful and be unhappy, or I can live in a place that makes me happy and has a balance to it with my work and my rest of my life, and so I chose that.
What do you hope an audience takes away from a Mark Hayes concert?
I would hope that they would just feel better than when they walked in. They would feel inspired by the songs that are, have that kind of a message, that they would be filled up and they would be connected to something like bigger than themselves, whether that's just the concept of beauty, or if it's something spiritual for them, perhaps, that they would, maybe they're in a place of pain or stress in their life, and so for that hour or however long the concert is, they're just like in bliss, and they go, wow, I needed that, I didn't even know that I needed that, and that they would go, I am so glad that arts are alive in Plymouth, in Michigan, and I'm glad that I paid my money to be here because this was so worth it, and I'm going to be back.
What's your next big musical goal? We talked about the American spirit a little earlier before we went on.
Yeah, that's a big thing. I've been writing some more serious works that have been in the sacred genre, like a Te Deum and a Magnificat and a Gloria, and I wanted to write something for community choruses, chorales, collegiate groups. So I'm writing this American Spirit, which is going to be a 30-minute song cycle for orchestra, chorus, and narrator. It's going to be taken from the writings of Henry David Thoreau and talk about what it took for the American man and woman to kind of do the westward expansion and just to kind of settle in this land and go, there's nothing here, I've got to look within myself and find that self-determination to kind of achieve this great country that we have. I've been invited to conduct at Lincoln Center, which I've not conducted at yet, so I'm planning on premiering that on Memorial Day weekend of 2011. So that's pretty exciting.
I cannot thank you enough for taking time to do this.
Well, just from this conversation we've had, I'm very excited about being with BeckRidge Chorale. From meeting you and seeing the obvious joy you have for music and your people skills, I'm sure that you're beloved by the chorale, and so I'm going to get to kind of work with your people now, and that excites me a lot.
Yeah, us too. Mark, thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.